Okay, so last time we left off, kind of looking at this John Ramsey, Megan Kelly interview. It's pretty lengthy, but already, we were finding some discrepancies between what John is saying in this interview and what he's said in past interviews, and we're going directly back to um, his interviews with police um, that he said before. Not even going back to interviews that he's had on forums like this, with Oprah and things of that nature, but just his interviews. So let's continue and we'll jump right back in.
That you're safe, but don't be paranoid, but just be aware of that. And your home should be your sanctuary. And that's a huge regret on my part to become complacent.
Do you
We
know
did.
if do you know if you had locked just the doors? Of course, you say you didn't check the windows, but had you locked the doors?
No, well, I thought I did. Yeah. There was a door found open that morning, not by me, but by the police. Um, it shouldn't have been opened. It's possible the kids were playing and went through it and didn't close it. I doubt it because that was kind of in a sub basement area. They wouldn't have been going down there. But I think the killer was in the house when we got home, and it it he waited until we were.
No, sir. No, sir. Because if the guys, this is the door he's talking about was open. And this is the door that I think Detective Whitson was talking about as well. Um, they saw some pry marks, is what he was saying at 9:30 when I think Detective Patterson or Whitson showed up. There were some pry marks on this door, is what he's talking about. And we talked about this in an analysis before. If the intruder had come in through this door, see, you see what I mean? Which one is it? Because you're telling me that the intruder came in through this basement window and left out through this basement window. You're also telling me that the intruder had keys. We had keys laying around. They had keys to the house. If the intruder had keys to get into this door or whatever door there is, why would there be pry marks on this door? Why would they need to pry the door open if they have keys? Why would they need to pry any door open if they can come through this window that was already open for John, specifically if he left his keys out? Please, please. Not to mention, and we also talked about the fact this whole door situation last time. So, anyways, we've already talked about that. But before we continue, I want to say thank you once again to someone who has supported this channel before and continues to support this channel. Eve, I appreciate you so much for this. Thank you, thank you, thank you for supporting and continuing to support and continue to show love, continue to watch, continue to comment. Got to give you an extra tight hug. Thank you so much. And hope you enjoyed this next video. As we continue with John, keep your blood pressure low. Take it easy.
Bed and took JonBenet from her room.
It's a chilling thought. It's a chilling thought just to have him lying in wait there for murder. Can I ask you to just before we leave the subject of security?
Right, because he said, because if we're supposed to believe that this person snuck in through here, then that's what we said. Actually, that's what Bill I can't remember his name, but on the anatomy and of an investigation, Bill, I can't remember his name. I feel like it's Ritter, but I don't know. It could be wrong. But he was like because they walked by here and he said, why wouldn't the criminal just sneak out through here? And and that's what I was saying, because when we did this analysis and we said, hey, if the writing pad for the ransom note was found right here and the ransom note was found right here, My God. Boom, boom, I'm gone. John, because we said on the second floor, the only person that could possibly see you would be Burke out of this window, because you're sneaking out from right here. Yeah, you're right here. So I got this there and I got this there. And then Burke is looking out through here, so Burke is probably the only one who could possibly see you, but we know Burke didn't see you because Burke said he didn't see anyone that night. He didn't see anything that night. So if you would have snuck out of this door, you'd have been in the clear. You'd have been gone. But that person, and that's what we're saying, the path of least resistance, this individual didn't take. This individual, who there's no rhyme or reason that John is telling us, went out this broken window and up through the grate. Okay.
Was there a dog? Was there any other layers?
JonBenet had a little dog. His name was Jock. And we had taken him over to the neighbors before we went out to dinner because we were going to leave town the next morning and have a second Christmas with my older children. And then we had a reservation for the family on the Disney Big Red Boat. And that was our, take place, right after Christmas. So we took the dog and took him to our neighbors, and they were going to take care of him until we got home.
Right. Oh gosh, I'm sure like all these things you'd like to have back, and who knows whether they would have made a difference. But yeah, the dog, they basically say as many layers as you can put between a potential bad guy and those you love, the better.
Yes. You're most vulnerable at night when you're asleep, for sure. Yeah. And it's just prudent to pay attention to that, regardless of where you live.
How far away were your children's bedrooms from your bedroom?
Well, it was an old house. There were basement, ground floor, second floor, and the second floor is where the kids were. And then the upstairs attic, we converted it to a master bedroom. So in terms of distance, I don't know, 30 feet, maybe something like that, 40 feet, but also on a different level.
And did you sleep with the doors closed to your bedrooms? Like, do you believe
no, they were open.
So do you believe if she had yelled, you would have heard it?
I think so. Yeah, I really do.
Huh.
I think with virtual certainty, we're sure a stun gun was used, perhaps when she was asleep in her bed. Don't know that for a fact, but.
And that's the thing that gets you now, doesn't it? That's the thing that gets you now, doesn't it? Okay, so John, who says he never hears the kids. That's not me saying this. John said this in the interview. He said, I don't hear the kids. Patsy says, John didn't hear the kids. John, I think on the interview, on one of the things he said, Patsy's queen sleep or something like that. And Patsy was like, no, I hear Burke when he gets up and goes to the restroom. And they both kind of agreed. John agreed, and then Patsy agreed. No, when the kids go to sleep, John sleeps pretty heavy. So John's not going to hear the kids. She was like, I hear the kids, but John doesn't hear the kids and whatnot. So, but that's funny because on the third floor, now irrelevant. I don't know why, he would have started talking about the basement. I'm asking you where your kids' rooms are in, relative to yours. He started talking about it's an old house. I don't care. It's there's a basement. I don't care. That's irrelevant information. And you're giving me information about stuff I don't care about. That is not related to the question that I asked you. Furthermore, it said, would you have heard? This is the exact question. This interview was when? So that was posted 2 years ago. She interviewed him on 12/13/2022, December 13th of 2022. Why do I bring that up? I bring that up because on Dr. Phil's show in 2016, When they asked Burke if he would have heard it, I'm trying to remember what he said.
Kind of the other end is I didn't really get it, but you got to stop crying at some point, I guess.
Many believe that JonBenet died from a blow to the head she received from a baseball bat or a flashlight before being strangled. Dr. Phil asked Burke flat out if he or someone else in the house did it.
Did you hit your sister over the head with a baseball bat or a flashlight?
Absolutely not.
If someone in your house did, do you think you would have heard it?
Probably. Yeah.
Now, John would have heard, but Burke, or John wouldn't have heard, but Burke would have heard. And if we're going to be more specific and say, well, those are two different things, John is talking about a scream, and Burke is talking about being hit in the head with a baseball bat. You would have heard somebody get hit in the head with a baseball bat? How close? How close do you think you would have been in order to hear somebody get hit in the head with a baseball bat and distinctly recognize that somebody was being hit in the head with a baseball bat? See, that's the thing. When you start to pull stuff together, people start to contradict one another. And this is why, if you're in the member chat and you saw the video that I posted when we were talking about Burke's attorney and how Burke's attorney was trying to prevent Burke from testifying before the grand jury and whatnot, because what the cops were trying to do, the cops were trying to separate and stop Burke from talking to his parents about whatever he told the cops. They were trying to prevent that. This is why they would be trying to get them to do separate interviews, to separate them. Because once you get them apart, we already have two major glaring things where Burke is saying, yeah, I would have heard something. And John is like, well, no, I wouldn't have heard anything. Interesting. And I think there are some police reports that said, we tested it. And if she would have screamed, then upstairs, you probably wouldn't have heard it. If this basement door, if it was like this, you probably wouldn't have heard it. But the way the sound is amplified through this, what have you, then somebody would have heard it across the street. And I said, okay. So we have conflicting stories here. And then when John said everybody was asleep in bed, and then Burke said, no, actually, I wasn't asleep in bed. I got up and went back downstairs. And then on the morning of, John is running around telling the cops, Burke is asleep right now. He's not even up. And Burke is like, no, I was awake. Burke is like, no, I was awake. I was just laying there. I was wondering what y'all were doing.
But yeah, I think if she'd have screamed or there'd been noise, we would have heard it, I think.
There were marks on her face and I think her neck too that suggested a stun gun had been used on her. John, forgive me because I don't know the answer to this, but what would a stun gun do to a person when used? I mean, would it incapacitate you for a time? What would it do?
Well, apparently it does. I don't know, but we had it looked at. Police discounted that idea, and we had it looked at by a doctor who specializes in that kind of stuff somehow, and he said with 99% certainty those are stun gun marks. And but I think
that's not the question I asked you. I said, did it knock her out? Whether it's stun gun marks or not, let's concede and say it is. They are stun gun marks. I said, would it knock her out? Why would JonBenet need to be knocked out if JonBenet was picked up out of her bed and JonBenet was asleep, dead as a doornail? Sleeping like a rock. These are all things described in the interview. I almost dropped JonBenet because she was so awkward, and she, through that, this is what John said. Through that, she stayed asleep. So somebody sneaks in her rooms. Now JonBenet uses the restroom on herself. And very seldom does she get up. But most of the time is what you're telling me. She uses the restroom on herself and gets up or stays asleep throughout the rest of the night, doesn't do anything. So if you can pick JonBenet up and almost drop her and yank her, and she stays asleep, then how are we to believe that a criminal would sneak in, pick JonBenet up, not almost drop her, but carry her downstairs because you carried her upstairs? I'm just picking her up and carrying her downstairs. And JonBenet would wake up if JonBenet sleeps that heavy? Why would he need a stun gun? He doesn't need one. JonBenet's not going to get up. Because this is what you're telling me. It don't make sense.
Because we didn't hear anything, you would think at least if this creature had come in and started to take JonBenet from her bed, she would have screamed, and we would certainly have heard that.
Yeah.
So
even if he covered her mouth, you'd hear something, some sort of signs of a struggle. But if the stun gun were used, and of course, I know that you found her with duct tape on her mouth, that could have kept her quiet. All right, so let's back up. So Patsy comes downstairs early. They say it was 5:52 a.m. was that 911 call. So it was early in the morning. You say you were taking a trip. And was that your first sign that something was wrong? She finds this ransom note at the bottom of the stairs. And then what? Does she come find you, or what happens next?
Well, she screamed, and it was, I was getting ready to get dressed, and she screamed. I could tell from the scream it was something was very, very wrong. And I ran down, and she had this ransom note, and it was just a unbelievable thing. And we went, or I think I did, looked, make sure Burke was okay, because his bedroom was on kind of the other end of the house, and he was still in bed and appeared to be asleep. So he knew he was safe.
I don't like the way he said it was an unbelievable thing. He lost conviction in his tone when he said it was an unbelievable thing. He just let the end of the sentence die as if it was a sentence that he didn't truly believe in. Like, I don't have any conviction about this sentence. I'm just going through the motions. It was unbelievable thing, and you're like you're on autopilot when you're saying that. Like, you're saying that, but your mind is elsewhere. I don't like that.
And so I took the note, and I mean, Patsy said, "Hey, this is a ransom note. JonBenet's gone." I checked her room, and so I tried to grasp what was in the ransom note. It was 3 pages, and just told Patsy to call the police, call 911. And of course, funny thing, we were criticized for that because the ransom note told us not to do that. Well, that's silly. Of course we did.
Of course.
What?
Of course. You're going to call the police, and you don't follow the directions of a kidnapper to not call law enforcement.
Yeah. Patsy called immediately. She was standing by the phone at that time, and I was still trying to comprehend what the note said and what was going on.
I'll get to the note in 1 second. I think it's worth reading so that the audience can understand how bizarre it was.
How did y'all get downstairs? I didn't know. That is really weird. That doesn't make sense. How did you get downstairs? At what point in time did y'all get downstairs by the phone? Because if you remember, John was he said he was running around in his underwear. So what that tells me is that at 5:52, Patsy got on the phone with Officer French, or the Kim Archuleta. She got on the phone with Kim Marshalletta, the dispatcher. And John apparently he said she called the cops and they were downstairs, but John said, I realized that I was downstairs running around in my underwear. Or he said, I realized I was running around in my underwear. And so he told Patsy to call the police. Now, apparently Patsy was downstairs calling the police alone is what you're telling me. I don't know if I believe it, but I suspect what you're trying to tell me is that Patsy was downstairs calling the police alone while you went up and got dressed in 3 minutes.
Before we do that, I want to play the longer Patsy 911 call because to this day, even though you've been totally exonerated, people say, "Oh, the parents did it." You know how it
Oh
is,
yeah,
John.
that'll
And I mean,
continue
I just think,
even after the killer's arrested and convicted. There'll still be
of course,
percentage of
and
people think
DNA
are guilty.
has exonerated you, so it's like okay. But I, as a mother, you hear Patsy Ramsey in this 911 call, and you can hear the sheer panic in
Yeah.
her voice.
We've already gone, if you've watched my channel, we've already gone through the DNA. No, it doesn't.
Voice, and especially if you listen to the longer version, which I'll play here, it's soundbite 2.
911 emergency. Police. What's on 15th Street? What's going on there, man? We were kidnapped. Sorry, please explain to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left and our daughter's gone. A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter? 6 years old. She's gone. 6 years old. How long ago was it? I don't know. I took it on the note. Oh my God, does it say who took her? What? Does it say who took her? I don't know. There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note? It says BTC. Victory. Please. Okay, what's your name? Are you Patsy Ramsey? Oh my God. Please. What's on 15th Street? What's going on there, man? We were kidnapped. Sorry, please explain to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left and our daughter's gone. A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter? 6 years old.
She went to say we have a rant. Then she took it. She withheld ransom, and she said we have a note here that my daughter's gone. But John is saying that Patsy was clear to him that it was a ransom note.
Gone. 6 years old. How long ago was it? I don't know. I took it on the note. Oh my God, does it say who took her? What? Does it say who took her? I don't know. There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note? It says BTC. Victory. Please. Okay, what's your name? Are you...
Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. That's Patsy said. That's where she stopped at, and she just lost it. She saw my daughter was gone, and I lost it. So you would have ran through here thinking that it was a note from your housekeeper. You'd have ran through here, and you'd have read that it was a small foreign faction, and then you would have got to the end and been like, oh, it's SPTC Victory, that sign for it.
Patsy Ramsey, oh my God. Please. Okay, I'm sending an officer over, okay? Do you know how long she's been gone? Please, we just got out. Is she right here? Oh my God, please. Okay, well, I am, honey. Please. Take a deep breath. Okay. Patsy, 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 Patsy.
And that's where she says, "Help me, Jesus." She's in a sheer panic. You were there. All she knew at that point was JonBenet was missing because she wasn't in her bed. And you can feel, you must have been feeling the same, John, just the slow reveal of, wait, a ransom note and wait, she's actually not in her room. What on earth is going on here?
Well, we didn't know. We knew we believed what the note said, that they have our daughter, and we were not to call the police. And if we did, she would be beheaded. And it was dark. It was cold out. It was a horrible feeling. I tell people it's like if you're with your child and you're at a department store or grocery store and you look around and the child's gone, you have this instinctive, just horrible feeling in your stomach that, where's my child? And
What I don't understand is why there's not more detail around going in Burke's room. I know they said that they did, but why is there not more detail around, well, we figured that out. Like, they immediately believed the note. And on Dr. Phil's show, Burke said, when the detectives asked him about it, he said, have y'all checked and see to see if she's hiding? Hiding where? Where would she be hiding? Is there a place that you know that she would be hiding? Because your parents automatically believed that she was missing, according to what the ransom note said. And apparently your parents busted in your room without doing their due diligence of turning on the light and asking and saying, hey, where's my daughter? And looking to see, is JonBenet in here? And waking you up and saying, is JonBenet in here? Patsy randomly just busted in there and screamed, where's my daughter? And then ran back out without even looking or giving a thorough look to say, is JonBenet in here? Is JonBenet in here? They immediately believed the note. And instead of, basically, Burke's first thought was, maybe she's hiding. But John and Patsy were naive enough to just believe the note as it was.
It's a terrible feeling, and I think all parents have experienced that from time to time when their little one's gone out of sight. You don't know where they are, and that was the feeling we had, and it went on for till 1 in the afternoon,
Right.
and
then an even worse feeling came. We've all had that.
Yeah.
In the moment of relief when you find your child well
Right.
is overwhelming. And you kept waiting for that to happen. And you can hear Patsy, waiting for it with the 911 operator and doing the only thing you can do at that point, which is pray to Jesus. Just pray.
Right.
It's not as you think it is. The note is one of the most important and bizarre things of this whole case. The handwritten note, which for our listening audience, we've put on the screen, and you can see it on YouTube. It's handwritten. It's 3 pages long, as you point out. And I'm going to read it just so the audience understands what you guys read. It was addressed to you, John Ramsey, right, dear Mr. Ramsey. And then it reads as follows. Listen carefully, ! We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We do respect your business, spelled wrong, but not the country it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession, spelled wrong. She is safe and unharmed. And if you want to see her, if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence a earlier delivery pickup of your daughter. Another grammatical error. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The 2 gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement, countermeasures, and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart, 2 words, us. Follow our instructions, and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny, as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory, ! SBTC. Absolutely bizarre. When you read,
I am sort of confused about the we statements, the switch. We are a foreign faction. I am watching you, but we are implementing or carrying out certain things.
that, other than the obvious, was there anything, if you had a chance to read it and reread it, what jumped out at you?
Well, there's several things that you wonder, what did that mean to the killer? One was the amount of the ransom money request, $118,000. Why not $1 million? Why not, $100,000? Whatever. Why 118? That had some significance to the killer. And then the other, of course, was the beheading concept. That's very you don't think about that as a punishment or a penalty, but yet that's a very common thing nowadays. We read about some of the terrorists and stuff that goes on. So you wonder, well, is it really a terrorist group or terrorist individuals? And that's a common threat they can make. And then, of course, the final thing was SBTC. What does that mean? Victory. That's sign off. So those are kind of the 3 elements in my mind that just didn't make sense. And the 118,000 was happened to be my annual bonus that year, and I was paid in January of 1996. And that is somewhat of a logical where that number came from. They would have had to known that, but the rest of it just didn't make sense. It was a bizarre note. I mean, I've been told too that in a way it's a gift, because I've been told by handwriting experts that with that long of a sample, 3 pages, if we had the handwriting of the killer, it'd be very easy to conclusively say this person wrote this note. It's a big sample of their handwriting.
What did the handwriting analysts say could be gleaned about the writing? Could they tell anything about age, gender, psychological state, any of that?
Well, we didn't get that from the handwriting people. Typically, they just told us what their findings were, and they rank their findings on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 is absolutely this person wrote it when they're doing a comparison. A 5 is absolutely no way. And I was a 1. They said absolutely you did not write it. Patsy was a 4.5, and she said, "Well, why 4.5?" And I was told that there's depending on where you're taught to write, told us what their findings were, and they rank their findings on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 is absolutely this person wrote it when they're doing a comparison. A 5 is absolutely no way. And I was a 1. They said absolutely you did not write it. Patsy was a 4.5. And
I think he got mixed up with the scale. I think before he said that, like a 1 is absolutely not, and a 5 is like, you kind of you may have wrote it. And so even here talking about the discrepancy in his score and Patsy's score, his score being a 1, you did not write it. And I think I heard Alex Hunter say like a 4 or 4.5. Either way, one of you is close to writing it, and you guys are on two of the opposite sides. So, and I think because Alex Hunter's like, what? I'd say a 4 or what have you. But somebody said 4.5. So basically, as we've said all the time, and as John is trying to skirt around the fact that Patsy was extremely close to being considered the writer. And they said what they said was, it looks like this person is writing in like printing style, is what one of the police reports said. It's like somebody's writing in like this printing style where you use kind of these block letters to disguise handwriting.
And she said, well, why 4.5? And it just there, I was told that there's a 5 is absolutely no way. And I was a 1. They said, absolutely, you did not write it. Patsy was a 4.5. And she said, well, why 4.5? And it just there, I was told that there's, depending on where you're taught to write, what generation, there are certain things that are kind of common, but they're not significant and they're not a lot of them. So the police were told, hey, you guys better look somewhere else because we don't see that either parent wrote the note.
Wait, back up, because I thought you said 1 means you wrote it, 5 means no way. Is it the and that then you just said that you were a 1, suggesting?
Oh no, I was a 5. Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
you were
a 5. Patsy was 4,
and Patsy was a 4.5. Okay, so you were both on exactly the scale of you didn't write it, or there's virtually no chance that you wrote it.
Right.
Okay. But Alex Hunter said he would put Patsy closer to, I think in the deposition, his deposition with where you had Darnay Hoffman. I think, yeah. But anyways, he said he would have put it to closer to like a 4. But anyways.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So what about since then, the psychologist, the psychiatrist, I'm sure you've had people like that, FBI profilers who have read it. And were they able to glean any sort of a profile from it?
Yeah, John Douglas, who started the whole FBI profiling program, and is pretty much considered the top of the heap as far as that skill set and accomplishments. We spent a couple 3 days with him early on, because our attorneys asked him to spend some time with us. And but his conclusion was, and prediction is, it's a young person fascinated by movies, probably in his 20s, maybe early 30s. And he said, this was not about JonBenet. This was directed at you, to hurt you, John. Somebody is either extremely angry with you or extremely jealous of you. And this was done to hurt you. And I thought, well, I couldn't possibly know anybody that I've made angry to that degree. And he said, you may not even know who they are. They've either observed you in a newspaper or, whatever, and developed this either anger or jealousy of me.
Mm-hmm.
That was John's conclusion, and I think he's right. Now, Lou Smith, who was the legendary detective from Colorado, out of retirement, and was put on this case by the district attorney early on. And Lou felt it was a kidnapping gone wrong. I always thought, well, those are two opposite theories. And Lou was a legendary detective in Colorado. And somebody pointed out to me recently that, well, that could be, those two are not incompatible, those two theories. I thought, well, you're right. They're not.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's somebody who wanted to hurt you went in there to kidnap your child.
Right. And that thought hadn't occurred to me in a good while, because I thought, well, here you got two top experts giving me two different theories, but they're compatible.
Yeah, they're compatible. But what about, the thing about
No, they ain't. No, they're not. Stop talking silly. No, they're not. They're not compatible at all. One is saying that I'm kidnapping your daughter for ransom. I just want money. I don't care about you. I don't care what you've done. I don't care. I just want money. Give me the money and you can have your daughter back. If I was upset with you, I would have just taken your daughter and tortured her. If I was legitimately upset at you to that degree, well, guess what? I would have taken your daughter and not let you know. Why would I take your daughter and let you know I have your daughter if I'm that mad at you? Why would I do that? If I'm that upset with you, why would I take your daughter instead? Come on, man. If I'm mad at you, why would I get other people involved in this? Do you know how easy it is to, instead of going through all of the mumbo jumbo and the jungle gym of sneaking in your house, not knowing whether or not you're going to be there with the security system or not, instead of waiting and watching you, you know what I mean? Because instead of waiting and watching you, there's been plenty of times where I'm pretty sure there's been plenty of times where you can catch John slipping by himself without anybody else. And I can catch you alone in a dark alley, or I can catch you down on Pearl Street, honestly, take you in a back alley and do my business. Why does JonBenet have to suffer like she did? Like, that doesn't make sense. Those are two different theories. Because now we're moving into three different theories. We're moving into some person who's 20 years old and doesn't like you, but watches movies that you probably would have watched. That's one, a person who's coming in and doesn't like you. But we also have who's supposed to be an intruder. But we also have somebody who's a kidnapper who's coming in for a different motive. It's not about not liking John Ramsey. It's just about wanting money. Kidnapping is about wanting money. I want money. I want something from you for a certain purpose. Now, Burke said he woke up and they said JonBenet is missing. They didn't say she was kidnapped. He said that they told him JonBenet is missing. That's what he said. Two different things again. Missing and kidnapped are two different things. Right? And so now we introduce a third theory in that JonBenet was assaulted. So that's a different person. A person coming down to assault JonBenet because he's a sicko. Those are three different things, buddy. So yes, your experts, even though you could try to pull them together for compatibility, if this person was 20 years old watching movies, how the heck would Linda Hoffman Pugh and Santa Bill be suspects? Be for real. Why would we even? This is what I'm saying. I can't trust you. Because this foolishness, that's all it is. This is foolishness. How if the FBI profiler that you hired on your team, as recommended by Susan Stein, if Susan Stein said, hire this man, he's an FBI, he created the program. If Susan Stein said that and you took her advice and you hired him and he said this guy is 20 years old and you guys have recommended old people. Granted, some of them were beforehand, but you continue to represent. If that's the case, then why are John Mark Carr and Gary Oliver should have never been looked at. Helgoth, I think, was like 38. He should have never been looked at. That's what I'm saying. Why should the police officers listen to you when your direction is inconsistent? For what? Doesn't make sense. You're all over the board. That's why they don't trust you.
This random intruder coming in that doesn't make sense. If you look at the note, is how do they know? You are from Atlanta originally? No, like you are from the South. Right. The 118,000. How would they know your bonus? I mean, it has to be somebody who. And I realize there's a chance they just randomly picked the number that was your bonus, but it seems like a small chance.
No.
It seems much more likely if somebody worked at your company or had reason to know that was your number.
Well, the two ways I guess they could have known that. Either they worked in our company, that amount was on my paycheck stub since the previous January as a deferred compensation bonus. So those we weren't real careful with that kind of stuff in our house. We could have been tucked in a drawer, or somebody that knew that from some connection inside of our company. To me, that's the logical explanation. The only other.
Was anybody from John's company ever investigated to that degree to say who the heck? Because that's happened. That's legitimate. That has happened before, where somebody said, "Hey, I got a businessman. He's got a lot of money in the safe deposit box. I'm working Saturday. If you come in, then and he won't be here. If you come in, I can just let the door back, because I'm thinking about an insurance guy this actually happened to. A guy was selling insurance, if I remember correctly. I can't remember if he was in Florida, but he was selling insurance, and he had a secretary working for him, something like that, and she left the back door open. Um, she left the back door open for people to get in. And when they came in, the guy wasn't supposed to be there on Saturday or whatever day it was. He wasn't supposed to be there. I think he was supposed to be out of town, or he doesn't usually come in on those days. But he actually went in to pick, because he forgot something. And so he went in to pick up some stuff. And when they came, he was there. And that left the showdown and the confrontation and stuff like that. So it's possible. But the investigation should have led to, okay, let's look at somebody here in the company. Can you recommend people at the company who would have seen your deferred comp package? Because let me tell you something. I used to work in deferred compensation. That is very private. We don't discuss that with anyone. The only person who can give that information away is the executive, right? Now, we were on a smaller scale. With what we were doing. And so this, the 2 or 3 people or the 6 people that were in, in our, talking specific, because it comes deferred comp. It comes in on the contract. It comes through a legally binding contract. And like, if you read through the legally binding contract, it says, on this date, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars, and then on this date, for this, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars, so on and so forth. And so that's what something like that looks like. And, to say that we just like left that laying around, you know what I mean? No. Also, too, if whoever would have told somebody about the deferred comp package would have had to have a specific, they would have had to known John's address to say, this is an executive who just got paid $118,000 11 months ago. He got paid $118,000 11 months ago, but we don't even know if John has spent that money already. You know what I mean? He's probably spent that money already. So why would you come asking for $118,000 like 11 months later? That doesn't make sense. And the person who would have done this would have had to have told John, told the address. Well, who in the company knows John's address and knows the amount of money that he made? So when you recommend Jim Marino or Jeff Merrick, does that make sense? Do these people know your deferred comp? Because they would have to not only know the comp, but they would have to know where you live. But because I don't remember in the summary of terms, or which is like basically the preliminary document that you create, that we would create to give to the lawyers, and the lawyers would work it up into like the summary of terms would be like 4 pages. And then you would use the summary of terms to make a full 16-page document with all the legalese, to accompany, all of that stuff. If you get fired for this reason, for cause, not for cause, all such as that, would be in there in that 16-page document. And sometimes like the documents would be like huge documents with like 50 pages, I think one document was, but it never mentions their home address. So somebody with access to that would have to tell the home address. That's who we need to be looking for. That's very easy. However, The FBI, neither the FBI nor the cops thought that it would be as John Ramsey is saying. And actually, the FBI and the cops from the very beginning were right.
Explanation I heard was Psalm 118 is right in the middle of the middle of the Bible. It references the stone becomes the cornerstone, is one of the passages. And, could that be the SPTC? And that's possible as well. One of the suspects that we are interested in signed his high school yearbook. Stone becomes his cornerstone. So,
Whoa.
It's a very bizarre note.
But when they looked at him, was he a match? Did he fit? See, that's that bull crap I'm talking about. You're throwing people out there, but did he fit the narrative? Was he present? Were police able to rule him out by saying his alibi checks out? Everything that we've seen, he wasn't there. Because John and Patsy keep doing this. They keep throwing people out there. They keep trying to throw people under the bus. And you turn around and find out, oh, well, that person was ruled out. That person was cleared by this. That person was cleared by that. So, no, they had nothing to do with that. Oh, what about this person who was close to the family? Like Mary Lacey said, oh, no, that person's been cleared by DNA. But instead of John coming and saying, oh, this was a possibility, but police checked him out and ruled him out. Instead of being honest and upfront about that, he's just throwing things out there and leaving him there to be like, whoa. And Megyn Kelly is just like, whoa, wow. Man, the police could have checked him out and said, nope, it's not true. We've already that. And the case that it wasn't. This is how after 20, 25, 28, 30 years, you fall prey to this kind of stuff. Because John just says this and you're like, oh my God, wow, did that really happen? And then you start checking and being like, no, it didn't.
No.
Well, what did they say, John? What did they say about, and I want to know, like, did they go and speak to everybody at your company? That'd be like the first place I would start as a detective, right? Like somebody knows what he made. Somebody doesn't like him. They've made that clear. They know where his roots are. They know you're from the South. So let's talk to everybody from the company.
Well, that kind of stuff just wasn't done. They should have done a neighborhood survey that morning, gone around the houses to the neighborhood. And, if you see anything unusual, what have you, they didn't do any of that. So they basically, in fact, the only detective, so-called, that was there that morning concluded that I was the killer because, quote,
oh, you just gonna make stuff up, huh? Oh, you just gonna make it up. Okay, so this is the report, and I'm not sure if it's the complete report, but this is a report from Detective Whitson. So if you scroll down, and this is on the internet. So if you scroll down, because what they were trying to do is, these are the questions when we ask, like when we talk about police blundering, when we ask normal basic questions, like the police are asking all the right questions. It's like, oh, you should have got the FBI, but the police are asking all of the right questions. You said, somebody who would have known about the money. Okay, maybe an employee. Do you have anybody that we should look at who would have access to your deferred comp package and your home address to say that? Maybe a secretary or something like that. You know who John listed and kept listing? I think 3 or 4 times John listed him. Detective Patterson advised me that Mr. Ramsey has 330 employees at his business, Access Graphics, and a list of employees was being obtained. Mr. Ramsey had only one possible suspect from his business. One. He had been terminated and may be upset with Mr. Ramsey. One person. And you're saying that person knew your deferred comp. No one else would have known your deferred comp number and your address except this person. We're going off of what you told us. How is it blundering? I'm going off of what you told me. From what I could obtain from you, this is what you told me. Okay. But then you turn around and get mad at me and say I'm blundering. Oh, they were looking at us from the beginning. Okay. I was also advised that arrangements had been made with Pearl Street Bank for the $118,000 in ransom money to be available if needed. I briefly spoke with John Ramsey. I asked Mr. Ramsey if he was sure the doors were locked when he got up. Mr. Ramsey said he was sure the doors were locked when he got up and when he went to bed that night. Like we said, I think on the other analysis when we were talking about the doors, John told these folks, I locked the door. The entire house was secure. I locked the doors. Plural. I provided a brief summary of what had been done at that time to Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey, Mr. and Ms. Ramsey, and I advised them we would be meeting with the FBI for their advice before deciding how to proceed. John keeps on telling us that the police were not, that the FBI were not involved. They were not involved early that day in terms of bringing in agents. They were not involved on the 26th in terms of bringing in agents. But Ron Walker says, yeah, I talked to him and I told him, he said, my estimation is that JonBenet would be recovered from the house. So they're communicating. I don't understand the disconnect. They are telling you, dude, I'm going to talk to the FBI, okay? And we're going to get advice on how to proceed with this. And John promptly goes in front of a camera and says, they won't let anybody help him. What? I just told you that I'm going to talk to the FBI. Why are you doing that? This is starting to make me mad because John is like bulldozing through what people are telling him and what people are doing. He's bulldozing through it in order to give you his thoughts on the process. And it's like, yeah, John, but your thoughts may not be true because they're telling you, I'm going to meet with the FBI. I'm being very transparent with you. I'm going to meet with the FBI, okay? And we're going to get advice on how to proceed. And Ron Walker, the FBI agent who they talked to, said, yeah, they did talk to me on how to proceed. And John is like, oh, no, the FBI wasn't involved. They didn't ask for any help. And they did. That is verified. And John continues to push the narrative. My only problem is that they never wanted any help. And we have all through John. I feel like this is hypocritical. John takes the police reports and uses the police reports on Larry King against Steve Thomas to say they cooperated, knowing good and dang well they're not, that's not the cooperation Steve Thomas is talking about. But then at the same time, when they say, I'm going to talk to the FBI, he says, oh no, they never wanted to bring the FBI in. Okay. Detective Patterson and I, two police. Detective Patterson and I, because we're trying to get on Tom Trujillo's case. Oh, he was an auto theft investigator. Leave Tom out of it, because at some point you got to cut your teeth and become and learn how to investigate a homicide at some point. You know what I mean? Not everybody comes out being a homicide detective. I mean, you got to come out on your first case and you got to smell how it smells, how a body smells. You got to get used to that, because police detectives tell you over time, they get used to this. You kind of get used to the smell, but you know what the smell is. You got to cut your teeth a little bit. So Detective Patterson and I checked the area near the Ramseys' home for any suspicious looking people or vehicles and did not see anyone unusual. Now, John will tell you, I believe, in an interview, he was like, oh, I was looking outside. And they were like, where were you during that time? Oh, I was looking outside and I saw like a vehicle outside and I was wondering where that vehicle came from. And the police are saying, I mean, we checked around and we looked for suspicious people in vehicles. We didn't see anyone unusual. He goes on down to the end. On Thursday, December 26th of 1996, this is Detective Whitson. I conducted a neighborhood canvass along with Detective Pat Whiten and Barry Hartcop. I spoke with the neighbors on 14th Street between Cascade and Baseline on the east side of the street. These houses would be across the alley from the Ramsey home. 792 14th Street was not home. He noted that. So I'm telling you, the neighbors on 14th Street right across, I'm doing a neighborhood canvass and I'm telling you that straight up. When we ask about I checked the area. When they ask about John Ramsey, when they ask about the canvassing, John Ramsey in The Other Side of Suffering talks about, you know, expresses concern about the police investigation in the neighborhood, states that the neighborhood around their former house had never been completely canvassed. 11 months after the murder, a neighbor, Patricia Limerick, is quoted in a newspaper story mentioned in the book as saying that she and her husband had never been interviewed by police, questioning where the police were. They checked right across the street. We're trying to check in the vicinity. That's what we did. In an interview from August 2000, John Ramsey also mentioned being told that interviewing everyone in the neighborhood wasn't done at the beginning, and he stated he had been critical of that. He noted that his own investigators had interviewed a number of people, but he wasn't sure if they had interviewed all the people not initially interviewed by police. Well, if we did it wrong and you hired your people to back up the investigation and y'all went and looked at people, either your people went and looked at everyone, or they didn't look at, or they did the same thing as the cops and looked at just certain people. So that would make them just as guilty as what you're saying the cops are for not looking at everyone, because they weren't as thorough as the cops as well. For some strange and odd reason, ask your investigators why they didn't do a thorough job as well. Man, you got to get out of here, man. So that's what I'm saying. John is saying, "Oh man, y'all didn't do a good job, or y'all didn't invest it, y'all didn't do it thoroughly." They did it. They were all over the place. Now I know you're mad and you want to try to discredit anything that the cops are doing, but the cops are taking the right steps. Now, do the cops have 100 people to help them take the right steps? No, they don't. That was one of the things that Ron Walker was kind of critical about. He said, man, if I could have got 58 agents in there, then it would have probably been a different story. True. I give you that. But here we are, John talking nonsense, saying nobody did a neighborhood canvass, and they did. They did do a neighborhood canvass. They specifically mentioned that and put that in the report. I'm going to leave it there for now. Appreciate you watching, liking, sharing, and subscribing. But this is the thing, man. There's this continued narrative that these cops aren't doing their job. And it's like, well, wait a minute. It kind of sounds like the cops are doing their job. They're asking you questions about certain things before you even get to that. And Detective Whitson will tell you. When you're at, oh man, why are you guys looking at us? Why are you guys worried about what we're doing? A few minutes later, Detective Kitcart returned to the room to show me something in a notepad which he had identified as Miss Ramsey's handwriting sample. There were 2 or 3 pages of writing. Then there was a page which was written in a felt marker that stated Mr. And Miss R, which matched the same type of writing in the ransom note. It was obvious that some pages prior to this page had been torn from the notepad. I didn't touch the page this was written on. At that time, I questioned if Patsy Ramsey was a possible suspect. I asked myself, why would a stranger take the time to stay in the Ramsey's house and write a ransom note? At that time, the focus of the investigation changed to include a possible family member as well as someone from outside the family. And if a family member was a suspect, we needed to obtain a search warrant before we collected additional evidence from the house. Look, I'm wondering if it's a family member as well as somebody from the outside of the family. We're not directly targeting you. We're saying that, hey, man, it's possible that somebody worked in tandem against your daughter. Could have been somebody on the inside as well as the outside. But you're saying that they specifically honed in on you and only you. No, they didn't. That is untrue. They are clearly telling you where their mind was. I'm telling you where I was on Thursday, December 26th, Thursday. I'm telling you, I thought it could have been somebody inside and outside of the family. That's what I thought. Because of these reasons. Perfectly logical. You got to be kidding me. But anyways, that's the video. Thanks again. Like I said, last video, thanks again for Trace supporting the channel. Thanks again for Eve supporting the channel once again. Thank you guys for having my back on this. And make sure you're taking care of yourself. And until next time, take it easy.